She wasn't born to be queen, but she ruled the world's heart like no monarch ever could. In a palace full of crowns, diamonds, and centuries-old protocol, one woman broke through, not by power, but by compassion. Her smile disarmed politicians. Her touch healed AIDS patients when the world looked away, and her death shattered millions across continents. But behind every photo of a glowing princess was a woman battling deep loneliness, betrayal, and the crushing weight of being both an icon and a prisoner. This is not just the story of Princess Diana. It's the story of a woman who redefined royalty, motherhood, and what it means to be human under the brightest spotlight on earth. This is Princess Diana, the Queen of Hearts. Before the cameras, before the palace, and before the tiaras, there was simply Diana, a girl born not into royalty, but into a quiet kind of aristocracy that whispered of old money and noble blood, but not love. Diana Frances Spencer was born on July 1, 1961, at Park House in Sandringham, a home leased from the Queen herself. Her father, John Spencer, later the 8th Earl Spencer, and her mother, Frances Roche, came from deeply aristocratic roots. The Spencers were one of Britain's oldest noble families, with direct ties to Winston Churchill and generations of service to the monarchy. On paper, she belonged to power. But inside the house, things weren't so polished. She was the third daughter, and disappointment quietly filled the air, because her parents had longed for a male heir. When her younger brother, Charles Spencer, was born years later, it didn't heal the marriage. Instead, it deepened the cracks. John and Frances's relationship grew cold and resentful. Eventually, the tension turned into separation. Diana was just 8 years old when her mother left the family. The impact? Devastating. Diana would later describe it as the most traumatic event of her life. She was shuttled between her father and mother like cargo. Too young to fight back, too sensitive to ignore the emotional storm. While other children played freely, Diana turned inward. Shy. Fragile. Always smiling, but always wondering why love seemed so conditional. She attended boarding schools, including the prestigious West Heath School, but academics weren't her strength. Teachers described her as quiet, creative, kind, but average. Still, she had a gift few could see on paper: empathy. She was drawn to the elderly, to the lonely, to the overlooked. Long before the world knew her name, Diana was showing the traits that would make her unforgettable. At 16, she left school and worked various jobs: a dance instructor, a nanny, and eventually, a part-time kindergarten assistant in London. It was this image, Diana with wide eyes, tousled blonde hair, and a heart that reached for children, that would capture the attention of a prince, and soon, the entire planet. But in these early years, there were no royal coaches or designer gowns. There was just a girl with wounds she couldn't name, and a hope she barely understood. She didn't dream of being a princess. She only ever wanted to be loved. And that, more than anything, is where her legend truly begins. When Diana was just 16, she met Prince Charles for the first time. He was 29, already world famous as the future King of England, and dating her older sister, Sarah. The meeting was brief. Charles thought Diana was sweet, innocent, even a little quirky. Diana thought little of it. She was still a teenager, more focused on ballet than Buckingham. But 2 years later, fate turned its curious eye. Diana and Charles reconnected, and suddenly, the young kindergarten assistant became the center of royal speculation. She was beautiful, aristocratic, and most importantly, untainted by scandal. For the royal family, she checked all the boxes. For Diana, it was a whirlwind she couldn't control. In February 1981, after only a dozen dates, Charles proposed. The ring, a now iconic 12-carat sapphire, slipped onto her finger, and the world erupted. Photographers chased her down London streets. Headlines screamed, the future queen. Yet in that very first interview, when asked if they were in love, Diana said, "Of course." Charles replied, "Whatever in love means." It was a chilling moment, subtle but telling. Diana laughed it off. The public didn't. Still, the fairy tale was on. On July 29, 1981, 20-year-old Diana walked down the aisle of St. Paul's Cathedral in a gown of ivory silk and 10,000 pearls. Her 25-foot train swept the floor like a coronation banner. Nearly 1 billion people around the world tuned in to watch. It was the wedding of the century, glamorous, historic, and filled with impossible expectations. From that day forward, Diana was no longer a Spencer. She was Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales. But beneath the diamond tiara and the cheers of the crowd, Diana felt the quiet weight of something she couldn't yet define. Like she'd entered a storybook where she didn't write the ending. She was no longer just Diana. She was the future Queen of England. But even then, she must have wondered, would she ever be the queen of his heart? To the outside world, Diana had it all. Royal titles, global fame, a handsome prince, and a palace to call home. But behind the marble walls of Kensington and Buckingham, the fairy tale was already starting to unravel. The first cracks appeared early. Diana, still barely 20, was thrown into a world of ancient rules and silent expectations. There was no manual, no kindness, no preparation. She was expected to wave, smile, attend state functions, and carry herself with royal perfection. But no one told her how to deal with the loneliness. She was surrounded by staff, cameras, and protocol. But emotionally, she was entirely alone. Charles was distant, busy with royal duties, polo matches, and lingering affections for Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman who had never quite left his heart. Diana knew. She wasn't naive. She once found a bracelet Charles had made for Camilla, engraved with the initials G and F for their pet nicknames, Gladys and Fred. It crushed her. The pressure mounted fast. The media couldn't get enough of her. Every step she took, every outfit she wore, every tear she cried was photographed and analyzed. The tabloids praised her beauty, but picked at her insecurities. The palace, meanwhile, offered little emotional support. So Diana turned inward, and the pain turned physical. She developed bulimia, a secret she battled for years. It began, she later admitted, the week the engagement was announced. It was like a release of tension, she said. I'd gorge myself and then bring it all up. The royal family dismissed it as moodiness, immaturity. But it was something darker. A cry for help buried under velvet gowns and royal waves. And yet, even while she was breaking inside, Diana was performing her public role flawlessly. She dazzled on royal tours. She charmed presidents, danced with John Travolta, lit up the world stage. Crowds adored her. But at home, she felt coldness. She once said the royal family saw her more as a threat than a daughter-in-law. The birth of her sons, William in 1982 and Harry in 1984, brought genuine joy. They became her anchor in a life spinning out of control. But even motherhood wasn't safe from royal judgment. Diana insisted on being a hands-on parent, taking her boys to theme parks, hugging them in public, sending them to school with packed lunches. That wasn't royal tradition. But Diana didn't care. She didn't want her children to be raised by nannies and palace protocol. She wanted them to feel love, the kind she never fully received. Still, the distance between Diana and Charles was growing. In public, they played the part. Behind closed doors, it was frosty at best. Diana struggled not just with his coldness, but with a system that treated her more as decoration than human. As her emotional state deteriorated, she began to feel trapped, like a bird in a gilded cage, beautiful to look at but never free to fly. She once told a friend, "At night, I cry myself to sleep. I don't feel part of the royal family." Another time she said, "I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know who to turn to. Diana was living two lives, one of dazzling appearances, charity galas and tiaras, and one of isolation, anxiety, and a desperate hunger for love, for purpose, for escape. And while the world cheered for their princess, Diana was quietly beginning to rebel, not against the crown, but against the silence that was slowly destroying her. In a palace where protocol ruled everything, from how to wave to when to smile, Diana dared to do something revolutionary. She chose to be a mother first. When Prince William was born on June 21, 1982, Diana's world shifted. For the first time, she felt a kind of unconditional love she had long craved. Holding her newborn son, she made a quiet vow that her children would never feel the emptiness she had known growing up. The royal family had its way of raising heirs, nannies, formal dinners, distant parenting. But Diana had other plans. She bathed her babies herself. She read them bedtime stories. She kissed them on the cheeks at school drop-offs, even as photographers clicked from every angle. She insisted that William and Harry see hospitals and shelters, not just palaces and polo fields. She wanted them to know the world wasn't just privilege, it was pain, and it was real. On royal tours, she broke tradition by bringing the boys along, even when it caused scandal among palace insiders. "Why are you taking children on official duty?" they asked. Because they were her children. And nothing, not protocol, not status, not the crown, came before that. William once said his mother smuggled candy into their socks before bed. Harry recalled her warm laughter and spontaneous hugs. These weren't acts of rebellion. They were acts of love. Still, Diana's parenting clashed with the cold, institutional ways of the monarchy. She allowed the boys to wear jeans, play video games, even go to fast food chains like McDonald's. Just like normal kids, she'd say, as the press gasped and royal aides rolled their eyes. But Diana knew what she was doing. She wasn't raising princes. She was raising humans. And when her marriage to Charles fell further apart, her role as a mother became even more crucial. The palace remained icy. Her husband remained distant. But the boys? They were her light, her purpose, her sanity. In the chaos of royal life, Diana found peace in the smallest of moments. Giggling with her sons in the garden, sneaking them out of Kensington Palace in disguise, or racing through the countryside with the top down and music blaring. To the world, she was a princess. To them, she was simply Mummy. And that was the title she cherished most. In the rigid, rehearsed world of the British monarchy, Princess Diana began to do something no royal had ever truly done before. She connected, not just with dignitaries or the press, but with people, real people. The ones who were sick, scared, forgotten, or cast aside by society. And she didn't just smile and wave from a distance. She stepped forward. She reached out. She touched them. In the 1980s, as the world reeled from the AIDS epidemic, misinformation and fear spread like wildfire. Even hospital staff wore gloves around patients. Many people believed the virus could be transmitted through touch. Then Diana walked into a London AIDS clinic, no gloves, no hesitation, and took the hand of a dying man. That one gesture, captured in a single photograph, shattered 1,000 myths and stigmas. She looked into his eyes, not with pity but with dignity. "HIV does not make people dangerous to know," she said. "You can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it." And in that moment, she didn't just change lives. She changed history. It was acts like this that made Diana more than just a royal figure. She was becoming a symbol of empathy, humanity, and quiet rebellion. While others stayed behind palace gates, she was walking through minefields, literally. In 1997, just months before her death, Diana visited Angola with the Halo Trust, an organization focused on landmine removal. Cameras filmed as she walked across a recently cleared field, wearing a protective vest and visor. It was shocking. Royals didn't do that. But Diana did. Because while politicians debated policy in air-conditioned rooms, Diana stood beside children who had lost limbs. She didn't wait for permission. She acted on instinct. Compassion was her compass. She visited leprosy patients in India, homeless shelters in London, starving children in Ethiopia, and war victims in Bosnia. And she didn't do it for publicity, though it always followed. She did it because no one else was. But Diana's empathy wasn't just for the far away. It was also deeply personal. She once wrote, "I don't go by the rule book. I lead from the heart, not the head." She made eye contact with people others ignored. She crouched down to a child's level, hugged grieving families, and stayed long after the cameras had packed up. It didn't go unnoticed. The press began calling her the People's Princess. Not because she asked for the title, but because she earned it. She didn't reign from a throne. She walked through the crowds. And in doing so, Diana became bigger than the monarchy itself. But this rising glow brought shadows. Inside palace walls, her growing fame was seen as a threat. Whispers grew louder that she was too popular, too emotional, too unpredictable. Her ability to connect, her greatest strength, was to the firm a liability. Still, Diana pushed forward. She began to use the press not just to share her work, but to share her truth. In carefully orchestrated interviews and moments of vulnerability, she exposed her struggles with bulimia, her emotional pain, and the isolation she felt inside the monarchy. She spoke of being unheard, unloved, and boxed into a life she never truly chose. Her honesty was groundbreaking. Royals weren't supposed to feel, and they certainly weren't supposed to talk about it. But Diana did, and millions found comfort in her courage. Suddenly, she wasn't just a princess. She was a mirror. For women trapped in loveless marriages. For those battling mental health in silence. For anyone who had ever felt alone while smiling in public. Through every appearance, every charity, every tear she shed and every hand she held, Diana rewrote the rules of what it meant to be royal. She didn't wear a crown to claim power. She wore compassion. And that, more than anything, is what made the world fall in love with her. Princess Diana's growing fame and influence brought admiration from the public, but behind the palace walls, a very different battle was raging. Her marriage to Prince Charles, once seen as a grand royal union, was unraveling in private and increasingly in public. The couple lived separate lives, with Charles continuing his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, a relationship Diana knew about and painfully endured. The palace, a world built on silence and discretion, became a cage filled with tension, resentment, and power struggles. Diana was no longer the shy girl from Norfolk. She was a woman fiercely fighting to be heard, but the royal institution was not built to listen. Tabloids thrived on every hint of discord. The media portrayed Diana alternately as a victim, a rebel, a victim again. Paparazzi relentlessly followed her, exposing her private moments for public consumption. Diana, trapped between her royal duties and personal pain, fought back by breaking the silence herself. In a groundbreaking and controversial 1995 BBC interview, she spoke candidly about her struggles, famously declaring, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." That moment shattered the image of a perfect royal family and exposed the raw reality behind the palace gates. Diana's openness was both revolutionary and risky. She was criticized by some as airing dirty laundry, but to millions worldwide, she became a symbol of honesty and courage. Behind the scenes, the war was not just marital, it was institutional. The monarchy feared Diana's popularity might eclipse the crown itself. Efforts were made to control her, to keep her quiet, to preserve tradition. But Diana refused to be silenced. She continued her humanitarian work in public appearances, building a new identity as an independent woman, even as the royal family tried to pull her back into the shadows. The strain of constant scrutiny, combined with personal betrayals, took a toll on her mental health. Diana faced depression and loneliness on a scale few could imagine, all while maintaining her royal duties and caring for her two sons. By 1996, the divorce was finalized, marking the end of their official relationship, but not the end of Diana's influence or her story. This chapter of her life was marked by heartache, courage, and a fierce determination to live authentically, even when the world was watching. In 1996, Princess Diana's marriage to Prince Charles officially ended. The world watched as the fairy tale unraveled into a very public divorce, a rare and shocking event for the British monarchy. But rather than fade into obscurity or retreat behind palace walls, Diana emerged stronger, more determined, and fiercely independent. She lost the title Her Royal Highness, but gained something far more precious: freedom. Free from the constraints of a broken marriage, Diana embraced her role as a global humanitarian with renewed vigor. She deepened her charity work, championing causes others avoided, from landmine victims to people living with HIV/AIDS. Her ability to connect with people, to show vulnerability, and to speak her truth only intensified. She was no longer just a princess bound by tradition. She was a woman with her own voice, commanding attention on her own terms. Her relationship with her sons remained her greatest priority. She sought to shield William and Harry from royal protocol's coldness, encouraging them to experience the world as openly as possible. But freedom came with new challenges. The media's obsession with Diana grew into a relentless chase. Paparazzi followed her everywhere, turning her life into a never-ending spectacle. Despite the pressure, Diana faced it head-on, never losing her warmth or her compassion. Her courage inspired millions and redefined what it meant to be a public figure. Though divorced, Diana's star was brighter than ever. She was no longer just a princess. She was a symbol of resilience, humanity, and hope. After her divorce, Diana found a new chapter in her life, one filled with freedom, passion, but also peril. She was no longer confined by royal rules, and with that freedom came the chance to explore love on her own terms. One of the most significant relationships of her final years was with Dodi Al Fayed, the charming Egyptian film producer and son of billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. Their relationship was passionate but brief, marked by intense media scrutiny. The press followed their every move, capturing images and speculation that fueled relentless gossip columns worldwide. But their love was more than headlines. To those close to her, Diana's relationship with Dodi represented a chance at happiness, something she had long been denied. Yet this new romance came with danger. The paparazzi, obsessed with Diana's every step, became a shadow that never left her side. They hounded her relentlessly, not just for photos, but for control of her story. In the summer of 1997, Diana and Dodi's every movement was trailed by dozens of photographers and journalists, turning their lives into a daily spectacle. The pressure was suffocating. On August 30th, 1997, Diana and Dodi left the Ritz Hotel in Paris after dinner, trying to escape the camera frenzy. In their car was their driver, Henri Paul, who was later found to be intoxicated. In a desperate attempt to evade the paparazzi, the car sped through the dark streets of Paris, entering the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Moments later, tragedy struck. The car crashed violently. Diana, Dodi, and Henri Paul were severely injured. Trevor Rees-Jones, the bodyguard, was the sole survivor. Diana was rushed to Pity-Salpêtrière Hospital, but despite efforts, she died in the early hours of August 31st. The news shocked the world. It wasn't just the loss of a princess, it was the loss of a humanitarian, a mother, a symbol of hope. The ensuing investigation uncovered a web of negligence, reckless driving, and the invasive pressure of the media. Massive public mourning followed. Millions around the globe lit candles, left flowers, and shared memories. Even those who had never met her felt connected to the woman who had changed how the world viewed royalty. Yet, amidst the grief, questions and controversies swirled. Had the paparazzi's relentless pursuit cost Diana her life? Could it have been prevented? The tragedy sparked debates on privacy, media ethics, and the price of fame. Diana's death was more than a personal loss. It was a moment that forced the world to look inward. Her life had been one of light and shadow, of love and loss. And in that final chase through the Paris streets, the world lost its Queen of Hearts. The Queen herself addressed the nation in a rare televised message, acknowledging the deep grief felt by millions. The mourning was unprecedented for a modern royal. Lines of strangers came together, united in sorrow. Diana's funeral on September 6, 1997, was watched by over 2 billion people worldwide. Her coffin was carried down the streets of London as thousands lined the route, crying, applauding, and honoring a princess who had become a symbol of compassion and humanity. Many believe Diana's death changed the British monarchy forever, forcing it to become more transparent, more human, and more in tune with the public's emotions. Her passing was not the end of her story, but the beginning of a legacy that continues to inspire millions. Princess Diana's life was brief, but her impact was, and remains, immense. More than 2 decades after her tragic death, Diana's legacy shines as brightly as ever, touching the worlds of charity, fashion, mental health awareness, and even the very fabric of the British monarchy. She was a pioneer in changing the royal image. No longer was royalty distant and untouchable. Diana brought warmth, vulnerability, and genuine humanity into the spotlight. Her tireless humanitarian efforts paved the way for future royals and celebrities to use their platforms for good. From campaigning against landmines to breaking down stigmas around HIV/AIDS, she showed the world how compassion could change lives. Her sons, Princes William and Harry, carry forward her mission. William's dedication to mental health causes and Harry's work with veterans and marginalized communities echo their mother's spirit of empathy and action. Diana also transformed conversations about mental health. By openly sharing her struggles with bulimia and depression, she helped destigmatize conditions many still suffer from in silence. Her style, too, remains iconic. Her grace, elegance, and sometimes rebellious fashion choices continue to inspire designers and admirers worldwide. But perhaps Diana's greatest legacy is the way she connected with people, the ordinary people. Her authenticity, courage, and ability to show emotion changed how the public views leadership and celebrity. In many ways, Diana was ahead of her time, a figure who understood the power of vulnerability in a world that often demands perfection. Her life reminds us that behind every crown and every title, there is a human being with fears, hopes, and a heart capable of immense love. Princess Diana, the Queen of Hearts, may be gone, but her flame burns on, in the causes she championed, in the lives she touched, and in the hearts of millions around the globe. Her story is not just a chapter in royal history. It is a lesson in kindness, resilience, and the enduring power of love.